Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today I want to have a very serious discussion about the game and some things that need changes, but I need to preface this all with the knowledge that I am going to come with as much information as I possibly can on these specific issues, because I realize that when you don't really present a lot of information, it just sounds like complaining. I'm going to do my best to mitigate that as much as possible, but I want to explain to y'all what Pokemon Unite needs to change incredibly bad. Like why the rank system in this game needs to change, why the matchmaking in this game needs to change, and I can explain it to you, show it to you why it's not working, and actually try to put some data behind it, and then explain how I would fix it. But before we dive into it, I would first like to thank today's video sponsor. It's going to be eWin Racing. They actually recently sent me out a Flash XL Series heavy-duty gaming chair, and this thing has been an absolute lifesaver. It is completely adjustable. It's got a lumbar and neck pillow, and surprisingly, I've never had a lumbar pillow before, and I thought that I was just going to take it off the chair, but it's been really, really nice on my back. And me being a little bit of a bigger guy, they sent me out the XL chair. It is completely adjustable. The armrests go up, down, sideways. You can recline in this thing. You can roll it around on carpet pretty well, surprisingly. It is mostly made of metal, so it's incredibly heavy duty and holds up to 550 pounds, which is luckily more than I need, but it's been a great chair. So check out the link in the description. You can use code KRASHY for 20% off. Again, huge thanks to them. They have all different kinds of sizes, shapes, styles. The leather, the materials feel like it's going to hold up super, super well in comparison to other gaming chairs that I've had. And again, just a big shout out to them for giving me this opportunity and sending me out a great chair. So yeah, definitely if you're looking in the market, if you're looking for a new gaming chair, definitely check them out. All right, let's go on ahead and get into it. So I have some bullet points in front of me, and I'm going to work down my bullet points, this kind of outline that I built, and I'm going to talk about each topic. So, number one on my list, I want to identify the problem. Let me explain to you what is the problem. What is he complaining about? What exactly is the issue? It's not just that I'm losing games. It's not just as something as simple as, oh, bad matchmaking, bad game. It's really not that simple, although it can be simplified that way. The problem is that we have kind of a three-part issue, and they all kind of go hand in hand. So the problem is the first two main things is that we have a bad rank system and bad matchmaking, but I need to kind of explain what that means. We have a bad rank system because the rank system isn't quite serious enough. It's a really easy system to get through. When I say a bad rank system, I'm talking about going from point A to point B, how you go from beginner to masters, and what it even means to be in that rank system. It is incredibly too easy. It's forgiving. It's just not serious enough. And as far as matchmaking goes, when I say that we have bad matchmaking, it's to say that players of even skill are not being paired together. That's what bad matchmaking means. Now, the third part in my second bullet point is that we have bad and slow patches. And this is not necessarily directly tied into all of the issues, but it definitely exacerbates the issues. So we have like half good changes and half bad changes when it comes to patches and balance changes. Like this most recent patch, if you look at it, like half of it was really, really good. Like we got some nice little buffs. Ninetales got buffed. I can't even really think right now, but we got some good changes. Like someone could look at that patch and say like, oh, that's a pretty good patch. I don't see why he's complaining. But half of it was kind of pointless. Like Decidueye buffs were like whatever. Gengar buffs are mostly like whatever. The changes to Cramorant make like no sense to me. Like sure, whatever. And on top of that, it's incredibly buggy. And we waited like 6 weeks for that change. So we have a game that has a bad rank system. And like I said, we're going to dive into this more and why it needs to change. I'm just kind of being general for now. We have a game that has not so great matchmaking. And we have patches that take 6 weeks to come out that are incredibly buggy. I mean, game-breakingly buggy, and are like not even that great of changes. I think that if this most recent patch, minus the bugs, if this most recent patch had come out in like 3 or 4 weeks, it would have been a nice change. It would have felt like, oh wow, every 3 or 4 weeks or so, they change something, it feels good. They do it again in 3 or 4 weeks from then. But that's not how it happens. We waited like 6 weeks for that patch, and it just felt like, okay, cool. We wait another month and a half and kind of see what happens. And so it's not very good. So this is going to lead me into my bullet point number 3, which is where we start talking about the actual rank system. So like I said, I generalized and said bad rank system, bad matchmaking, but we have to kind of explain that. The design philosophy of ranked. So the question here is, where does the rank system truly begin? Does the rank system begin when you start at, the first game you jump in at beginner, or does the rank system truly start at masters? Now, in my opinion, the rank system truly begins at masters. Everything else from beginner to masters is mostly just onboarding. Like, if you play the game enough, you're gonna hit masters anyways. If you're stuck, you're probably just like still making a lot of really basic mistakes. But I'm serious, it's hard to put an actual number behind it because we just don't have data, but it feels like a minimum of 70% of the players that play ranked are in masters. Everyone is in masters. People that have good win rates, bad win rates, everyone is in masters. So the only way that you're basically not in masters at this point is if you either don't play enough or you're making a lot of really, really beginner mistakes. So the design philosophy currently is that masters essentially is the ranked mode. So now I want you to do me a favor and try to imagine something for me. Imagine there was no beginner to ultra. Just imagine you opened up the game, you clicked ranked, and it instantly started you at masters 1200. Well, that system would work just fine, wouldn't it? It would be like an MMR ELO based system. You would jump in, you play games, your numbers go up. You lose, you win games, your ELO goes up. Or goes down. You win games, your ELO goes up. You lose games, your ELO goes down. That system would work just fine. So we basically have this kind of Frankenstein system where the first part of it is onboarding, trying to get you to masters, like getting you to rank up and earn the diamonds, and the second part is like the actual ranked mode where you play and you gain your ranked points. And for the sake of saying, it doesn't actually matter which one they pick. I think that people often have the sentiment of, well, it's way too easy to get masters. And I agree, it is, but that actually doesn't matter, because if you have good matchmaking inside of a system where masters is where the ranked mode actually starts, then people will segregate into their skill levels. Again, keep in mind, the rank system is the system itself, like whether or not you're going through beginners and how you get to masters and how the system works when you win and lose. That's the system, but the matchmaking is what kind of games are created. So if the game is everybody's masters, that's fine actually. I actually think that system works just fine. The problem is that everybody in masters is not of even skill level, so we need better matchmaking to make those games better. So, all right, my next point is the importance of consequence. Losses need to matter more. The irony of being in masters is that when you lose, it doesn't actually matter that much. Now, what do you mean? There's definitely consequence, right? Of course there is. The consequence is that when you lose, you're going to lose like 6 points, 8 points, 7 points, 5 points, maybe even 10 points, something like that. But winning outweighs losing so much for so long that it doesn't actually matter. The irony of this is that prior to hitting masters, losses actually matter more. When you're ultra and when you're veteran, when you lose, the loss is kind of definitive. You know what I mean? It's like you lost minus the performance point system. I'm kind of putting that to the side because that's kind of its own little beast. But minus the performance point system, when you lose in veteran or ultra, you lose. You lose a diamond, it goes away. That actually has consequence, right? Because when you lose, you take one step backwards, like a definitive step backwards. But when you're in masters, when you lose, you take like a half a step backwards. So the system itself and how it's operating once it comes to being in masters actually doesn't make very much sense. There's not very much consequence in the system. You just lose, and you lose like 6 points, and you win your next game and you gain like 11 points. And this goes on till about 1700 or 1800, which, let's be real, takes a long time to get to. So, unless you're playing like a ton of games. So we have a system that will basically, the TLDR of the current rank system is that everybody gets promoted to masters, and the more you play, everybody promotes inside of masters. No matter who you are, no matter how good you are, no matter what you're playing, no matter what you're doing. So the importance of consequence is very, very important, because we need a system that will give us a reason to need to improve. And I'm going to talk about that here in just a little bit. All right, my next bullet point is masters needs to be earned and maintained. And so everybody can earn masters in the current system. And like I said, I think that that's actually fine. But I think the part of the problem, and this is more of a cosmetic issue with the rank system for me, is that we start at 1,200 points and that you cannot lose masters whatsoever. But I don't really care for that. Like, I want the system to be more serious, and I want the system to feel like an actual achievement and an accolade. Like, if you're a Masters player, cool, that's great. Everybody can earn that. But I want you to, like, truly have earned it to some degree. So basically, this bullet point is me saying, why do we start at 1,200 points and not like at 200 points? Like, starting at 1,200 points feels a little bit silly because they basically give you a gigantic foot in the door for being a Masters player, because you have to lose so many games to fall down in Masters. Like, you would have to lose so much because, again, there's not really consequence, because if you lose one game, you can make it up by basically just, you have to lose like 2 games per 1 win for a while there, and that's not an exact 1-to-2 ratio, but essentially this bullet point is basically me saying I think that we should start in Masters much lower, something at like 200 points, and actually have the ability to lose. So this means that the system would have to more evenly give you points and like take points away from you, and we would have to start much closer to the 0 mark, so at like 200 versus like 1,200. So that way we could actually lose Masters if we were not performing well. Given this is incredibly important, that this kind of a system would not really work without good matchmaking. But we're going to talk about matchmaking in a little bit. Still not there yet. All right, number 6 on my bullet points, or my list, is friction and conflict. The system needs friction and conflict. And what do I mean by friction and conflict? I mean that you need to be able to hit points when you're ranking up where you hit a wall, where you're unable to climb. And the reason why that needs to happen is because it drives the individual player's necessity and desire to improve. If hypothetically, let's talk about the system in its current state. If I was to get stuck at 1250 because the system is no longer just giving me free points for losing and winning, basically, like I said, when I say losing, I mean having a negative, win rate. If you're under 50% win rate, you can still climb. If the system would give me more friction, if it would give me more conflict, and it would put walls in front of my face to say, hey, you have to be better than that, it would give me a necessity to improve. It would make me stop and say, you know what? I'm not climbing anymore. What can I do? And like I said, the current system allows basically anybody to rank up. Once you hit Masters, you can negative win rate yourself, and I don't know the exact number because I've never tried it, but you can negative win rate yourself almost to 1,800 or up to 1,800. And I know that for sure because I've basically seen it, and I'll be showing it to you here in a little bit. So to recap, we have a rank system that is bad because it promotes everybody without consequence. We have a rank system that's bad because when you lose, it really doesn't matter and you can easily make it up with wins. And we have a rank system that has bad matchmaking. So if you are good, you can never get away from bad players and you can never really kind of prove your skill. And if you are bad, you kind of maybe wouldn't even know it because the system is still promoting you no matter what you do. So in this bullet point, that's just a mini recap, but in this bullet point, it kind of explains the need for friction and the reason that it's actually good for us to have a system where we start getting stuck. Because when you start getting stuck, it reminds you that there's still work to be done. And so, maybe you get stuck, again, hypothetically at 1250, and you have to think to yourself, well, what could I do better? Oh, well, you know what? Maybe I'm not holding my ultimate for the right moment. Or, maybe I need to be focusing on rotating to first and second dreadnought faster. Or maybe I should be helping my lane partner in lane better. So the friction and the conflict of not being able to climb anymore creates a vacuum where you're like, you know what? I need to focus on this. I need to really improve. All right. Bullet point number 7 is incentives and rewards drive self-reflection, the desire to improve. So the last point was that friction and conflict create a necessity to improve. Incentives and rewards drive the desire to improve. Now, we actually got, this season is the first season they ever did rewards for certain ranks, and I think that that's great. The problem is that the ranks that they put it on are the ranks that they give away for free. So again, remember how I was talking about the difference between potentially starting the system at 200 points versus where we start now at 1200 points? This would be a perfect example of that. If we started the rank system at 200 points and had to make it to 1800 points in order to earn rewards, well, that's that's a big climb, right? Potentially, depending on how much the system gives and takes. But that could potentially be a very serious climb, because you would have to play very well to earn the rewards. Now, I'm not saying it should be super unobtainable, but I think that it shouldn't be on ranks that are essentially free. I kind of forget. I think the rewards are what, 1400, 1600, 1800. The reality is that those ranks are basically given to you for free, as long as you play enough. And for anybody that's listening that isn't at 1800 yet, the reality is that if you have a decent win rate, now it doesn't even have to be 55, 56, 58%. If you have a decent win rate, 52, 45, that's not even decent, but if you have anywhere in this range, you're gonna hit that rank. You will hit it. You just haven't played enough games. I don't even know how many games it is, hundreds maybe. But eventually the system will give you more points than you're losing, to the point of hitting you close to 1800. So my point is that if all the rewards are on ranks that you essentially get for free, they're not really that they don't really create that much of a drive, right? Maybe it is creating a drive, but it would be better to create a drive that someone has to actually earn. So incentives for ranking up. And we're going to talk about more incentives in a little bit too, because there's one thing that I think would be really good. So the next point is split queues, split leaderboards. This is a huge thing that needs to happen. I can't believe it hasn't happened at this point. We have trio queues, 5 stacks, solo duo queues, all in the same ranked ladder. It's clearly not a balanced system, right? Like, if you're in a 5 stack, you do have a better opportunity to win. So they changed the matchmaking a little bit, and you can kind of tell that 5 stacks don't really face solos that much anymore, if at all. I don't even know if it's possible anymore. I haven't seen it in a really long time, but 5 stacks still do every now and then face a 3 stack. That's not possible. Like, it's basically an impossible win unless the 5 stack is bad at the game. Being a 3 stack versus a 5 stack, and being like a 3 stack and a duo stack versus a 5 stack, is basically a free loss. It's basically impossible to win that game. So that should never happen. So essentially, we need some kind of a split queue where at minimum solo, duo, trio queues can queue by themselves and have their own leaderboards, and 5 stacks can have their own leaderboards. This would create better matches because they would be more fair, right? Again, 3 stack versus 3 stacks, and duo queue versus duo queue, or 5s versus 5, something like that, solo, duo queue, however they want to split it. But we do need split queues, basically for teams and for everyone else. So it would create better matchmaking, but because it would have, or better matches and better matchmaking, but because there would be a different leaderboard, it would also create another incentive for grinding. Because right now, the top 100, that's just the best example, is nothing but 5 stacks. Nothing but 5 stacks. If you want to be a top 100 player, you have to play on a team. It is the only way to do it. So, and this isn't the end of the world, but it would be a good reward, right? To be able to see yourself climbing up and see how high you could get in a solo queue system or a solo duo trio queue system, or whatever the case may be. So split queue, split leaderboards, this one is honestly one of the biggest things that I think needs to change, just for the sake of wanting to play the game. And it leads me to my next point, which is the global leaderboard needs to read way more players. Like, the global leaderboard, it reads 10k players. So like, when you're sitting on the home rank screen, if you're a brand new master player, it just says like unranked or no rank. And it's like, why? Why not? They should just read the entire master rank, because what that does is that gives you context to your skill level, and it also gives you something to improve every single game, or something to work towards every single game. Again, it's another incentive and a reward to drive self-reflection and a desire to improve. And if you see yourself maybe not at the world ranking that you want to be at, then there's a necessity to improve. So the global leaderboard, or like the global ranking number that you see on the Masters home screen, that could definitely improve and just show everyone. I don't see why not. I don't know what kind of technology it takes for them to essentially access databases to pull all the numbers and all the players. I'm sure that there's some barriers there, but I think that it would be worth it to at minimum raise it from 10K to like, I don't know, 100K, so that way we can see where people are falling or something. All right, number 10 out of my 11-point discussion outline is matchmaking, finally. So the irony is that the majority of what we've talked about hasn't even been about matchmaking. It's been about the actual system of ranked itself. And this point says having a good ranked mode doesn't matter if there's no matchmaking restrictions. So everything I've talked about up to this point actually doesn't matter at all if the matchmaking isn't good. Because even if we started the Masters rank at 200, even if it was harder to climb up, even if there was more friction and more people hitting walls and, having to get introspective on how to improve, even if there was split leaderboards and things of that nature, none of that would matter if a good player can match with a bad player. So hypothetically, a 2100 MMR player can get into a game with a 1200 player. What's the point, right? What's the point? The 1200 player is either fresh or struggling to climb, and the 2100 player is very, very good and consistently climbing. And because the rank system the ranked matchmaking has no restrictions, it puts them in the same game and they're cut from the same cloth? That doesn't make any sense, right? One person is either struggling or really new, and the other person has worked their butt off to be where they are, and it's putting them in the same game. I think that this is simple, right? I think that I don't even need to really explain why this does not work. Matchmaking is meant, and ranked is meant to put players of even skill levels in a game together. If we have a system that doesn't do that, then it doesn't matter how good the ranked mode is, and you can't really call the matchmaking in the game good. And we have irrefutable evidence that this is what happens because of Unite API. If you're not familiar, in the link in the description, there will be a website called uniteapi.dev, and on Unite API, you can look up your account, and you can look into the players that you're playing with, and you can see the variance in your master points to them. This is where we get a lot of our evidence to show that matchmaking is currently not working well, at least not to what would be a competitive standard for an online ranked game. Now this is the part where I will probably put up a screenshot. I've been thinking about this for a second, and this screenshot is a player account that I pulled, and I have the name censored for the sake of discretion because I'm not trying to shame anybody. I don't mean to flame anybody, but this player essentially has 2,619 games on Greninja. They are playing Choice Specs, Muscle Band, and focus lens, or scope lens, sorry, couldn't think of the name of it. And they have an overall win rate of 46% and a Greninja win rate of 47%. This player, statistically speaking, is not a very good player, but they are currently, at the time of taking this photo, or this screenshot, they were at 1,747 in Masters. This is the exact example that I'm saying when it comes to having a system that promotes players for free, and having a system that has no friction, having a system that has no incentives for improving. This player is just shy of 1,800, hitting the very final reward for Masters. This player has consistently climbed since hitting 1,200, despite the fact that they win less than half of their games, and this player has never been hit with enough friction to ever stop and say, what do I need to change? Because I don't know if y'all know this, but Choice Specs on Greninja has a very, very, very small return in terms of value. It's easier to say that it has no return in terms of value using Choice Specs on Greninja, but that's not technically true. It will technically give you a little bit of a damage, but there's a better option, right? Obviously, that being Buddy Barrier, Focus Band, Razor Claw, basically anything other than Choice Specs in that slot would be a better item. But after 2,600 games, the system itself has never given this player a reason to reevaluate. And And not all of those are ranked games, right? Like, not all of them are ranked games, but you can obviously see that this screenshot was taken like a couple days ago, so you can tell that this is decently recent, and it was taken under ranked matches if you look at the top of the screen. So this screenshot says a lot about the system, and uniteapi.dev says a lot about the system and why I wanted to make this video. So, friends, this leads me to my last point on my list, my last talking point of the outline. There is a sacrifice for changing this system. There is a compromise that has to be made, and the sacrifice is time. If we make the system more serious, it's harder to climb. If we make the system more serious, matchmaking takes a little bit longer. The fallacy is thinking that this game is 100% a casual game or 100% a competitive game. It's both. So there is a compromise between having a casual ranked mode, which is what we have now, where it's incredibly casual, basically you just play, versus an actual ranked mode or a very serious ranked mode. So when I say that the system is bad and that it needs to be changed, I'm not really asking or saying that the system needs to be super serious, because the reality is that that system probably wouldn't work. But we do need a compromise. We are currently on the far left side of the spectrum, where ranked is very nonsensical, the matchmaking is very nonsensical, and it's kind of just a joke. And we need to be somewhere in the middle between being super serious and super casual. And that's just kind of my thoughts. There needs to be a compromise. We need a system that creates more friction but isn't super hard to get through. We need a system that offers incentives and wants to give us rewards, but those rewards shouldn't be nearly unobtainable, because not everybody can hit the highest level of ranked. We need a matchmaking system that reasonably puts players of even skill in each other's games, not tries to gatekeep people, so hard that it's hard to find matches and takes 10 minutes in queue. So it's about finding a compromise. I don't really want to hear people's comments or read comments where people are saying, oh, well, if you do this, then you're going to wait 20 minutes for a game. That's obviously not what I want, and nor what they should do. It's about finding that balance and making the compromise. So there's my thoughts. I really did want to go through every little bit and explain how and why. That's the big part. Like I said, people will still say I'm just complaining. People will still think it's just because I'm bad at the game. People will still say, oh, you're just finding reasons to whine. That's fine. It's not a problem. I'm here to try to make the game better and to try to share my thoughts. So leave me a comment, leave a like on the video. I would definitely appreciate it. I know this was a long one, so thank you so much for sticking with it. If you stuck with it this far, at the very end of your comment, put Fix Unite MM, and that stands for Fix Unite Matchmaking, and that'll show the real ones. But friends, as always, be sure to be kind to one another. Tell someone that you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.